Very good afternoon to all the members, our speaker and our Central Council member, CS Rajesh Tarpara, in his 13th webinar of Triple 6.0 Master Knowledge Series. On the behalf of Institute, I extend a very warm welcome to all the participants. And before we begin, we sincerely regret the postponement of the webinar, which was originally scheduled on 1st of July due to unforeseen circumstances. We appreciate your patience, understanding, and continued support. It's now my privilege to invite CS Rajesh Tarpara, Central Council member ICSI, to deliver the opening remarks and set the context for the today's session. Sir, we welcome you and over to you.
Good afternoon. Thank you, madam. Good afternoon to all my colleagues. And especially, I also welcome on behalf of the ICSI today's speaker, PCS Kaushik Naharji. Welcome you, sir.
Thank you, sir. My pleasure.
Yes, ICS Rajesh Tarpara, Council member of the ICSI, extend warm welcome to all the participants and esteemed speakers and all the tech support team and ICSI officials and all the person in this master knowledge series of Triple 6.0 on the topic of role of a company secretary in representation before GST Appellate Tribunal. Friends, before we deep dive into the webinar, and the topic, I would like to just highlight one initiative of the Indian government, which was announced in the last budget, that the government of India has announced the Corporate Mitra Scheme. As a ICSI, we have actively participated and joined the hand with the ministry, along with all the three professional institutions like ICAI, ICMAI, and the ICSI. The initiative of the government is with aim to create pool of trained and certified para-professionals to assist MSME in managing their business affairs and operations and regulatory compliances. The scheme is intended to promote ease of doing business as well as contribute to vision of the Prime Minister Sri Narendra Modi ji about the achieving Viksit Bharat by 2047. India now having more population around 30s age, and they have smartly captured by introducing these kind of the scheme. The graduation or person under final year of the graduation are eligible to participate up to the age of 30. The program will comprise approximately 150 hours of expert level online academic training and then followed by 6-month on-job training with the professional firms and other companies. Academic support for corporate mitra has already been extended by ICSI, ICAI, and ICMI. So we all put together will encourage and participate in large number to this initiative of the government, and all the details are available in the website of the ICSI. Friends, coming to the topic today, that is GST and role of the company secretary in a GST Appellate Tribunal. Friends, the GST was introduced on the 1st July 2017. And every year, the government of India and all the government agencies are celebrating 1st July as a GST Day in the India. And as a part of that celebration, ICSI is also celebrating this GST Day by organizing various capacity building programs at all the levels. And yesterday it was planned, but due to technical fault, I also again apologize all the members attending this for the technical faults and certain unforeseen events which is beyond our control. But now on this day, we are celebrating the GST Day by organizing this webinar. The launch of the GST is One Nation, One Tax is a motto of the GST, and coming all the multiple acts in a single act that is called a GST. And it is a very landmark and very historical indirect tax reform in India. And friend, you might be aware that the GST or VAT system is more or less similar. First country in the world who have adopted. Yes, is any disturbance? Hello, tech support?
No, sir, you can continue.
Okay. So some background noise is there, so I was just disturbed. Anyway, Brazil is the first country which has adopted the VAT or GST concept in their economy, and presently, from the day by day, almost 80 to 85 populations of the world is under GST regime. They are living under the GST regime, and Ek Bharat Shresth Bharat, एक जो संकल्प है, it is brought a transparency, accountability, and economy by introduction of the GST at all the level of the states government, central government, and interstate level, the next generation definitely going to have fruitful, and really we will achieve the Viksit Bharat. And recently in budget, government has also constituted and announced the functioning of the various GST tribunals. And this indirect ecosystem is giving ample opportunity to professional like a company secretary. GST tribunal is a specialized quasi-judicial body established to resolve second level dispute in between the taxpayers as well as department. It ensures uniform interpretation of GST law nationwide and reduce the judicial burden on the high courts and well as Supreme Court. The GST Appellate Tribunal survey highest forum revolving such disputes and ensuring justice, consistency in indirect tax administration. Friends, as a company secretary, we play very significant role in these kind of the new and newly introduced field, we can say, in our practice area. While representing the client, while proceeding with the appeal in the GST, we being a company secretary coupled with the smart and very skilled interpretation skill, we definitely going to prove our weightage in these kind of the area, and we should capture this all kind of the opportunity. Under section 116 of the GST CGST Act, a practicing company secretary specifically recognized as a qualified professional who can appear, plead, and act on behalf of the appellate or respondent before these tribunals. Role of governance professional extend beyond even advocacy to the strategic advisory while evaluating the merits of the appeal, interpreting GST laws and GST provisions. There are so many GST provisions, friends, which have gray area. And since introduction of GSTs, there are so many amendments, circulars, clarifications, rules, regulations, which definitely require in-depth knowledge and interpretation skill. And being a company secretary, we are best suitable person to venture into these fields. And just imagine the workflow, friends. There are so many concepts under the GST that is called supply, concept of the supply, time of supply, place of supply, taxability, non-taxability, exempt supply, zero-rated supply. And so many concepts are valuations, rules are also there, interstate supply, meaning of the consideration, and so many disputes and gray areas are there. And as many as gray area, as many as concept under any law, we are there as a professional to interpret and prove in the tribunal. At high depth level, we have in this webinar, we have with us CS Kaushik Dhiren Nahar. So I welcome you, Kaushik ji, and just giving a brief introduction. CS Kaushik Nahar is a commerce graduate and company secretary practicing as a GST practitioner as well as PCS with a period of 15 years or more expertise in GST service and taxation laws and corporate law. He has trained more than 3,000 of the professionals, government officials in Vapi, Silvassa, and that nearby areas. And he is represented before adjudication and appellate authority with wide exposure across the various industries from pharmaceuticals, automobiles, e-commerce, and healthcare. He is actively associated with corporates like Delta Corporate, Allchem Laboratories, Richard Thermis Medicars, OIDC Limiteds, and many more clients are there. He brings deep practical insight into the GST practice and compliances, and he is regular visiting faculties to various institutions, activities, and chapter activity. We welcome him as a speaker of this today's webinar. I am confident that he will deliver and he will give the insightful knowledge to all the person who is attending this webinar. And with this word, once again, I welcome you all for look forward for insightful and enriching sessions. Thank you. And over to you, Kaushik ji.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Thank you, Rajesh sir, for the brief introduction and very detailed explanation regarding the GST era right from 2017. So before we start the deliberations, I wish a belated GST day to all the participants, and I place my appreciation also and my thanks also to my mother institute, that is the ICSI, for giving me an opportunity to share the knowledge for GST. I would like to thank the CCM, Shri Rajesh Tarpara sir, my colleague, Mr. Nilab Kaushik also, who have given this opportunity to me to share this knowledge on the institute platform. So with this, we start the formal deliberations relating to the GST Appellate Tribunal. Now, before we move ahead into the deep diving relating to the given topic, I would just like to give you a brief introduction regarding what are the objectives of the session, what we are going to cover into this session. So, GSTAT is basically a litigation platform. So, going directly into the GST-AT part, before that, I would like to dwell into the basic aspects of the GST. I would also like to dwell into the pre-litigation activities which are there in GST, and post that, what are the litigation formats in the GST, and then we will do the deep diving into the GST-AT so that members can acquaint into the basic concepts also before we move ahead for GST-AT. So my coverage would be the litigation framework in GST, the constitutional and legal basis of appellate tribunal, what are the representation rights as a PCS, the practical litigation skills, where I would be sharing my experience relating to drafting, hearing skills, and the process part, and what are the career opportunities in GST-AT. The broad agenda which I have formed for discussion is the first would be the GST law framework and what are the ecosystem of GST, important GST concepts which Rajesh Tarpara sir already informed relating to the controversies that we come across in GST. Then how the pre-show cause notice proceedings are being conducted. The fourth part would be the litigation journey, how litigation ends up to Supreme Court in GST Act. Then evolution of the tribunal system in India, the constitutional framework of GST-AT, why GST-AT was needed and its journey timeline. Then constitution of the GST-AT tribunal, the legal provisions that govern the GST-AT in CGST Act, the GST-AT procedural rules, then representation and rights and scope of company secretary, then tribunal practice toolkit which I have prepared, then what are the basic legal arguments which are taken before the GST-AT, the challenges that we face in GST litigation practice, and I have prepared a roadmap for the freshers who intend to venture into GST practice, what all steps they can take ahead. And the last part is the conclusion. So with this background, I will start my due deliberations into the subject. Now, I'll just take you a walkthrough through the GST law framework and its ecosystem. Now, in GST, though we say it's a one nation and one tax, but as far as the acts are concerned, we have a central act which is called the CGST Act, Central Goods and Services Tax Act 2017. Then we have state specific acts. Each state has its own separate GST acts. For interstate supply, import and export, we have Integrated Goods and Services Tax Act. Then for union territories, which are without state legislature, that means which don't have any MLAs in the union territory, for that union territories, we have UTGST Act. And the last one is the Goods and Services Tax Compensation to States Act 2017. Now, this act has been abolished, but when the GST came into existence, this act was initiated because the states were going to lose revenue relating to transition from VAT to GST. So to compensate them, this act was initiated. So the state legislation relating to UT GST and SGST. This is the comparison that we have prepared, how the taxability arises in union territory and in the state. Now, in any state, for example, say Gujarat, if any transaction takes place within the state, the tax that is levied is CGST and SGST. Now, same way, if any transaction takes place in a union territory which is without state legislature, which are Andaman and Nicobar or maybe Lakshadweep, Dadra Nagar Haveli, Daman and Diu, Chandigarh or Ladakh. So we have the taxability is CGST plus UTGST. The rates, whatever are there, maybe 5%, maybe 12%, maybe 18%, or maybe 28%, is divided into two parts. Half goes to the state part and half goes to the central part. And if it is a interstate supply, that is goods or maybe services are provided from, say, for example, Gujarat to Rajasthan, in that case, it is an interstate supply. So in that case, IGST is applied. Now, just like the structure of the Companies Act, wherein we have the act and supported by the rules. So the same structure is there for GST Act also. Now, the rules which are there in the forming part of the CGST Act are relating to composition levy, the registration rules, determination of value rules, input tax credit, tax invoices, credit and debit notes, accounts and records, how they are to be maintained, returns, how they are to be filed, which returns are to be filed, then the manner of payment of tax with the government, then claiming of refund from the government, the GST which you have paid, in many cases, refund is eligible, just like inverted duty structure, wherein my purchases are liable to tax at a higher rate, for example, at 18%, and my outward supply is liable to tax at a lower rate, that is 5%. In that case, I am eligible for refund under inverted duty structure. Then I may export out of India without payment of GST. In that case also, I am eligible to claim a refund of the input tax credit, which is there in my electronic credit ledger. Then there are rules relating to assessment and audit. Assessment and audit is a pre-show cause notice activity which is done by the department. We'll dwell more detail into it in next slides. Then there is a concept of advance ruling in GST, wherein we can apply to the GST department to obtain an opinion regarding the taxability or maybe exemption or relating to the any procedural aspects relating to GST. Then we have appeals and revision rules, how appeals are going to be filed, in which form it is going to be filed, what are the pre-deposit, what is the form in which appeal is to be filed, how hearings are going to be conducted. That is all being defined into the Act and the appeal rules. Transitional provisions were important when we transited from the VAT era or maybe excise era or service tax era to the new GST era. At that time, many transitional issues were there. So to take care of those issues, transitional provisions were enacted into the Act. Then anti-profiteering rules are there. What is anti-profiteering is, when GST came into existence, many industries who were not getting the benefit of input tax credit, they started getting the benefit of input tax credit because of seamless flow of ITC. So to prevent the misuse of the benefit, being pocketed by the business into their own kitty, the government had an intention that the profit should pass on to the customer and not be pocketed by the business. So to take care of those rules aspect, anti-profiteering rules were introduced. Then to do the movement of goods from one state to another or maybe within the state subject to limits of maybe 50,000 or 1 lakh rupees in different states. E-way bill rules define how the goods will move and how the movement of goods will be done during transportation, how the transporter will change the details into the e-way bill. All those things are mentioned in the e-way bill rules. Then the next part is inspection, search, and seizure. Even this is a pre-show cause notice activity, which we will dwell more into detail. Then the demands and recovery. Now, any dispute between the taxpayer and department, that dispute starts with a show cause notice. The show cause notice is the document which creates the demand for tax, interest, or penalty, or maybe for refund wrongly claimed or input tax credit wrongly availed. So without any show cause notice, the dispute does not get started. Then after the demand gets confirmed, the government has a right to recover that demand from the taxpayer. So it has formed rules for recovery of that tax dues from the taxpayer. And the last one is the offenses and penalties rules. Now, what are the constituents of the GST ecosystem? So these are the main constituents of the GST ecosystem. The policy and administration things are decided by the central government, the GST Council, the state tax authorities, and the state governments. Then CBEC and or CBIC, that is the central board. Then the GSTN, which is the technology backbone, just like our mca.gov.in, the whole compliance relating to GST is taken care of on this website. Then we have help desk, just like MCA help desk we have. Then we have facility center at a department who help us to file the returns and for payment of tax. Then next stage we have the constituents are taxpayers and intermediaries. So taxpayers are the important part relating to this GST ecosystem because it's the main constituent performing the tax payment function on the supply of goods or maybe services. Then we have tax return preparer, which are consultants. Then we have applications or portal service providers, those who assist in filing of returns through APIs. They are mainly software developers. Then we have data, money, and accountability partners, which are income tax and customs, wherein income tax department, without a PAN, you cannot have a GST registration. So PAN is mandatory part. So to that extent, you need income tax department also as a part of this GST ecosystem. Then there are banks which help us to make the payment of the tax to the government. RBI, which does the tax payment settlement on behalf of banks, and then the decision-making dashboards and analytics, which is done by the GST Council based on the data that we file in the GST returns. So these are all the important constituents of the GST ecosystem. Now we will dwell into the next part, which are important concepts of GST. To understand GST, we need to go into the definitions. So any act, if you want to understand, if you refer the definition, I think the 50-60% of the act you will understand only from the definition. So I have hand chosen the important definitions which are there in GST. So first is supply. Now, supply is the heart of GST, I'll call, because any activity that you do, maybe supply of goods, whether it is a supply or not, you supply a service, it is a supply or not, that you will have to first look into before you go into the aspect of taxation, whether tax would be applicable or not. Because to go into the taxation part or the rate of tax part, you first have to look into whether the activity will qualify under supply or not. Now, to qualify any activity as a supply or not, the Act has given, or the definition has given concepts such as sale. The activity may result into sale, the activity may result into transfer, the activity may result into barter transaction, the activity may result into exchange, the activity may result into a license, a rental activity, lease activity, or a disposal activity. So in supply, it is a very exhaustive definition which has been given, supported by 3 schedules. What is supply, what is called as a deemed supply, then what is not a supply, or what is supply of goods and what is supply of services. These all things have been defined into the CGST Act. Now, second important concept is composite supply. See, many times businesses face with an issue of taking two supplies together. Suppose I am purchasing a goods from one person, I would expect him only to do the transportation of goods by आप ही कर दीजिए transportation. So in that case, what will happen is the supply is sale of goods, but the allied supply is transportation of goods. Now, one is supply of goods and another one is supply of service. But since the main activity is supply of goods, supply of service, that is transportation service, is a composite supply. So in that case, the rate of tax that will be applicable would be the rate of tax that will be applicable on the sale of goods. So this is a very important concept to analyze a supply if there are bundled two supplies together. Then another one concept is mixed supply. Now, what happens in mixed supply is two goods are sold together for a single price. When we go to superstore, for example, there are many supplies which are combined together. Maybe we have a festive good gift hamper which is given to us with some another product. So in that case, what happens is two supplies getting sold to us at a single rate. So in that case, the supply is liable to GST at a higher rate of between both the supplies. The next important definition is relating to goods. Now, what is goods has been very cleverly and clearly defined into the Act, which says that any kind of movable property other than money and securities, but includes an actionable claims, growing crops and things attached to land agreed to be severed. So this is a very exhaustive definition relating to goods. Now coming to the definition of services, anything other than goods, money and securities has been covered in the definition of services. Now, even business has been defined in GST. So any activity that you do has to come under the definition of business. If it is not a business and if you have done any activity, it won't be liable to GST. There are many examples into practical life which may result into a commercial transaction, but since it is not a business, it is not liable to GST. One small example I would like to take here. Suppose we go to a gold shop. I have old gold with me, and if I am selling that old gold to the shopkeeper before buying a new gold. Now, that sale of gold to the shopkeeper by me is not a business activity. It is my personal activity which I have done for selling that gold. That is what the significance of the definition of business is. So the important parameters of business are any trade, commerce, manufacture, profession, or any similar activity, whether or not for pecuniary benefit. So even if you have done a business activity, but if you have not generated any profit out of it, even then that activity would be qualified as a business activity. And any incidental transactions relating to any trade, commerce, manufacture, etc., even that would be qualified as a business activity. Now we move towards the categories of supply. The categories of supply, as Rajesh Tarpara sir deliberated during his introduction, these are various types of supply. That is, first is zero rated supply. Now, if any goods or services are supplied outside India or to a SEZ unit located in India, but located in a special economic zone, in that case, that supply will be termed as zero rated supply for the purpose of GST. And in that case, if we apply for a letter of undertaking before supply, no GST is payable. And if we have not taken the LUT and if we have paid tax, in case of zero rated supply, we can claim refund of the tax which has been paid. The next type of supply is exempt supply. Now, exempt supply is such supply which is fully exempt from tax. The exemption may be given by way of a notification wherein the entries are specified as to which goods and which services will be fully exempt from tax. If there is exemption, then we need to note that if we have a taxable supply and a exempt supply, then in that case, we are liable to reverse the input tax credit which we had availed in proportion to the exempt supply. The next is nil rated supply. So nil rated supply is a concept in which the activity is liable to tax, but at a 0% tax. Then there is non-taxable supply. So non-taxable supply are such that in that case, GST is not applicable. For example, alcoholic liquor, petrol, diesel, on this activity, though they are business activities, but they are out of the GST net. So therefore, it is called a non-taxable supply. Then another part is reverse charge. Now, what is reverse charge? It's one of the most dangerous concept in GST, I would call. A person receiving goods or a service is liable to pay GST. So you are liable to pay GST on the expenditure that you have done. A good example for reverse charge service is amount that we pay to an advocate. If a business entity pays fees to the advocate, in that case, the business entity is liable to pay GST on reverse charge basis. So this is a unique or maybe one of the most dangerous concepts in GST, I would like to call. Then the rate of taxes which are there in GST is 0%, 0.25%, 1.5%, 3%, 5%, 12%, 18%, 28%, and 40%. So all these rates schedules have been prepared in notification, and the goods and the services which are liable to what rate of tax have been properly defined in the Act. Then we come to the important concepts of taxable person. Now, a person who is registered in GST or who is liable to be registered under GST. He is called to be a taxable person. Now, why this concept is important? Because a department intending to take any action, many provisions say that it can be taken only on the taxable person. So, in that sense, the definition becomes very important. Then the next definition is supplier. Now, a person who supplies any goods or services is known as a supplier, and the supply may be done either by himself or it may be through an agent. Even an agent acting on behalf of his principal is also known as a supplier only. Then the who is called as a recipient. A recipient is a person who either receives the goods or services, or he may not receive the goods or services, but he may pay consideration relating to those receipt of goods or services. That means the goods or services are received by, say, another person, but the consideration has been paid by the another person. So in that case, a person who pays the consideration, even that person is deemed to be a recipient for the purpose of GST. Now, the another important definition is consideration. Now, any business activity that is undertaken is supported by a consideration, but each and every consideration is not liable to GST. So, a consideration, what it is, how it is liable, has all been defined in the CGST Act. I have also quoted the subsections where the definition has been mentioned in the CGST Act. Then the aggregate turnover. Why this definition is important is the liability to get registered in the GST arises only when you cross a threshold limit of the turnover, which is currently 20 lakh rupees for services and 40 lakh rupees for supply of goods. And in specified states which are there, the limit is 20 lakh rupees for goods and 10 lakh rupees for services. Then the value of supply has been defined in section 15. Now, at times what happens is we take a transaction, we receive the consideration, but the consideration is received maybe for too many aspects. I'll just give you an example for our own company secretarial practice. Now, say I have filed a form DI 12 for the client. I have paid a 600 rupees professional fees to the MCA for filing of that form. Now, the question arises, if I charge a professional fees to the client with GST, whether this 600 rupees is included into the transaction value or not. Because this 600 rupees I have paid on behalf of the client as a fees to the government. I have not paid that amount on behalf of the client to any other person. So an amount going to the government on behalf of the client will be included or not included in the value of supply. Such type of nitty-gritties are clarified in the value of supply. So just to clarify, the ROC fees that we pay to the government is not included in the value of supply for the purpose of charging GST. Then in case of value of supply, even just like we have related party transactions, even here the related party transaction valuation, how it would be done has been defined. Now, next we come to the important concepts of time of supply. Now, we take the business activity, but when the liability to pay my tax arises has been defined in the time of supply sections. For goods, the liability to pay tax arises when an invoice is raised. For services, the payment of tax liability arises when advances are received or invoice is raised, whichever is earlier. So there are other complications also that gets involved in the time of supply. Suppose there is a change in rate of tax, then how tax liability would be discharged. Suppose there is a change in maybe the transaction provisions were there, wherein pre-GST transaction was there, but consideration was received in GST era. So how GST liability is going to get discharged has been properly clarified into this time of supply provisions. Then next we come to is place of supply. Now, why place of supply is important is to decide whether a transaction is an interstate supply or a intrastate supply. Intrastate supply is a transaction or a sale transaction which happens within the state, and interstate supply is a transaction which happens outside the state. And based on either interstate or intrastate transaction, the head of the tax is determined. Now, all the activities relating to businesses whose place of supply would be either the location of supplier or the location of recipient has been properly defined in IGST Act. Two types of divisions have been done to define place of supply. The supplier and the recipient are located in India, or the supplier or the recipient is located outside India. So in both the cases, based on the activity, what would be the place of supply has been very properly defined into the IGST Act. Then next we come to the interstate supply and intrastate supply, which we have already discussed. The another important aspect is export. Now, any goods which are taken out of India will qualify as export of goods. The same case is with services. If we say as a company secretary, we are providing services to a client which is located in Dubai or maybe USA, then in that case, the service is being supplied outside India. And if the consideration is getting received in a convertible foreign exchange, only then that activity will take the color of export. Then we come to the another part is import. If we purchase any goods from outside India and that goods are brought into India, that activity would be called as import of goods. Now, when we import the goods, basic custom duty and IGST is levied at the port before the goods are cleared for domestic consumption. The same way for services, if we buy any services from outside India or maybe from a person located outside India and the services are consumed in India, in that case, that activity would be qualified as import of services. Now we come to the another core definitions of input tax credit. Now I'll call input tax credit as the backbone of GST. And this is the most litigated and the most disputed area for GST, I'll call. Because as a taxpayer, he will always try to take maximum input tax credit, and department will always try that the taxpayer gets minimum input tax credit. So in both these scenarios, it is that the most litigated area of GST part. So what is input tax credit? I'll just give you an example. Suppose you as a taxpayer has taken a consultancy services from me, being a company secretary, and I have raised an invoice of say 10,000 rupees plus 18% GST. So I have charged 1,800 rupees as GST on the invoice. So that 1,800 rupees which I have raised an invoice on you, that 1,800 rupees will become an input tax credit for you. So I hope this concept is clear with this example. Now it is called that in GST Act the credit is seamless, but there's a section called Section 17, subsection 5, which mentions the list of all the ITC which is not available. For example, if you purchase a four-wheeler car or a two-wheeler, the ITC is not available. If you purchase any goods or maybe your services for your personal consumption, the ITC is not available. So many activities are there which may be incurred in a regular course of business. For example, a construction of factory, the ITC is not available. So we, as a GST practitioners, it is not that all the ITC which we have received from our supplier is eligible. We need to check whether that ITC is blocked or not blocked. Now, the another part for income tax for input tax credit is tax invoice. So tax invoice is the primarily document which evidences that a taxable supply has been made, what type of supply has been made, and on that basis tax input tax credit is availed by the taxpayer. Now, credit notes and debit notes. Whenever an invoice is raised and the value needs to be enhanced, a debit note is raised. And if the value is to be reduced, then credit note is raised. And it is important here to mention that a person raising the invoice has to raise a debit note or a credit note. A person receiving the goods or services issuing a debit note or credit note is of no relevance. Then the next part is e-way bill. As we discussed, any movement of goods that takes place during the course of business exceeding 50,000 or 1 lakh rupees limit, e-way bill is required. Now, what is e-way bill? It's a license for movement of goods from one location to another. Then next is e-invoice. Business entities whose aggregate turnover is more than 5 crore rupees have to mandatorily generate e-invoice on the portal. A separate portal has been formed for this, and those businesses have to register the invoice on the portal. Now, with this basic background, and this is not only the basic concepts or background, but these are the list of issues which are litigated before the GST department between the taxpayer and the department. Now I'll take you through the proceedings which are there before issue of show cause notice. Now, this is called a pre-show cause notice stage, wherein a GST dispute between a taxpayer and the department begins. Now, there are two types of proceedings before the department. The first part is the department detects based on the intelligence that they have. The department has a huge artificial intelligence based systems from which they can collect the data, and based on the analysis of that data, they detect fake invoice tax credit cases, they detect e-way bill mischief cases, they detect fake sale cases. So based on this detection and intelligence that they have, they conduct inspection at the premises of the taxpayer. They may conduct a search at the taxpayer. They may even seize the goods which are available at the premises of the taxpayer. Now, all these activities are pre-demand activities. So these activities are just based on an intelligence activities. So they come to our premises, they may inspect our premises, they may take some documents, they may even search our premises or maybe residential premises, and they may take the documents from us. So this is called the preliminary stage. Then the another part, what department does is the department audit. The department has already formed a separate audit commissionerates to conduct the audit of the taxpayers. Now, this department audit is conducted based on the financials that we file with the income tax department and the returns which are filed with the GST department. So if there are any issues on which either tax has not been paid or input tax credit has been wrongly claimed or refund has been wrongly claimed by the taxpayer, in that case, again, during the course of department audit, a cause of dispute arises between the taxpayer and the department. Now, the another part is special audit. Now, in case the value has not been correctly declared in the GST returns, or the ITC availed is not within the normal limits as per the parameters of the department. In that case, the department orders a special audit from a chartered accountant or a CMA. Now, all these activities form the pre-show cause notice stage. Now we come to the another part, which are assessment or maybe statement-based investigations. An investigation department, it may be either enforcement department of the state or maybe preventive department of the center or an investigation agency like a Directorate of Goods and Services Tax. So all these agencies have a right to issue a summons to the taxpayer or to any other person who is connected with the investigation that they are carrying on. Now, to issue a summons is with an intention to collect an evidence from the taxpayer relating to the intelligence that they have. They have two options. Either they visit your premises for the purpose of collecting the data, or they may issue a summons and they may voluntarily request us to issue to submit the data to the department. So once data is submitted, after that statements are conducted or maybe recorded by the department. Second part is assessment proceedings. So whatever returns that we file, those returns are scrutinized by the department, and based on that scrutiny, if there are any issues which crop up during the department scrutiny of the returns, they issue a notice, and based on that notice, we are as a taxpayer are expected to give a satisfactorily reply to the assessment notice. Now, if the assessment notice reply is not satisfactory, then again that becomes a cause of dispute between the taxpayer and the department. The another aspect relating to dispute is the cancellation of GST registration. In many cases, GST registrations are abruptly cancelled, maybe for reasons like 6 months nil returns have been filed, or maybe for 3 months no tax has been paid. There may be no business activity and no tax was paid, but previously tax payment was done. So in that case also, the cancellation of GST registration becomes a cause of dispute between the taxpayer and the department. The another important aspect is the inspection of goods in movement. As we discussed, e-way bill is a license to do the movement of goods from one place to another. Now, the GST department has formed the squads for inspection of these e-way bill issues. So when they inspect the e-way bill, they may have some issues with the e-way bill. Suppose the GST registration number has been wrongly mentioned, or maybe if the address might have been wrongly mentioned, the value might have been wrongly mentioned, the quantity of goods might have been wrongly mentioned. So all this put together may become a point of dispute between the GST department and the taxpayer. So these are all the activities which may result into a dispute between taxpayer and the department. Now, with this background, I would take you to the litigation journey under GST. Now, I've already explained how disputes may occur between the taxpayer and the department in GST. Now, once there is a dispute, you have two options. Either you pay the tax liability along with the interest and penalty and finish off the investigation or the case without any receipt of show cause notice. Now, if you don't pay the demand of the tax, interest, penalty, and in that case, the department is duty bound to issue a show cause notice. Now, before a show cause notice is issued, there is a provision in the GST Act that a pre-show cause notice consultation notice is issued. Now, that notice is issued in form DRC 01A. So, it is just like a pre-intimation that this is the issue that has been raised against you. This is the demand of tax that has been raised against you. If you intend to pay the tax, interest and penalty and finish off the investigation, then that option might be given to the taxpayer. Now, if any pre-show cause notice consultation is done, and if you agree, even at this stage, you can make the payment of tax, interest and penalty. So tax, interest and penalty you can pay at any stage, but tax liability remains same. Interest goes on increasing up to the date of payment, and the penalty also goes on increasing as per the stage of payment. Now, once the pre-show cause notice consultation is completed and the assessee does not agree to pay the tax liability, in that case, a show cause notice is issued. Now, the show cause notice is issued under Section 74A of the CGST Act. And the show cause notice is issued by a superintendent, assistant commissioner, or maybe an additional commissioner. So these are the proper officers who issue the show cause notice, and the monetary limit has also been defined in the by way of a circular up to which limit these officers can issue a show cause notice. Now the limitation period to issue a show cause notice is 42 months from the due date of annual return. Now every taxpayer are required to file an annual return before 31st of on or before 31st of December of the after the end of financial year. So the show cause notice can be issued before 42 months from the due date of annual return. So if the financial year 2026, the due date for annual return is 31st December 2026. Now, the show cause notice for the financial year 2026 can be issued within 42 months after 31st March 26. Now, to give a reply to the show cause notice, you are not required to make any payment of tax liability. After a reply to show cause notice is given, the department issues a adjudication order that is called an OIO, and it is issued in form DRC 7. Against this OIO, first appeal is filed before the first appellate authority. This is the first stage wherein we are first appeal stage wherein we are required to pay the pre-deposit of 10% of the disputed tax amount. Now, if there is no tax amount and there is only penalty amount, then in that case, the pre-deposit is required to be paid of 10% of the disputed penalty amount. And there is a cap of 20 crore under each head for the payment of pre-deposit. Now, the limitation period to file appeal here is 3 months period plus 1 month condonation period is available. So if you can explain the cause of delay of up to 1 month, then the appeal would be admitted for hearing. And if there is any undisputed tax liability in the order, that means you accept that the tax liability becomes payable, then in that case, you will have to make the full payment of the tax, interest and penalty to that extent before filing the appeal. Now we come to the next stage. This is the GST stage, the Appellate Tribunal stage. Now the appeal before the Appellate Tribunal is filed in form APL 05. The limitation period is again 3 months from the due date or from the date of receipt of order, plus 1 month condonation period is available. So if you have valid reasons to file appeal after 3 months, but within 1 month, the bench will condone the delay and the appeal will be accepted for hearing. Now the pre-deposit amount is additional 10%. The 10% which we already paid at the first appeal stage is there, and at the GST 80 appeal stage, we are required to deposit additional 10% amount. Again, the cap is 20 crore for each head. And again, the undisputed amount, that is the amount which has been agreed upon by you for payment, has to be deposited in full. After the order of GST 80 appeal, if there is any substantial question of law. Now, what is substantial question of law? Means any legal provision has been challenged, any constitutional provision is negatively impacting the taxpayer. In that cases, only the appeal can be filed before the High Court. For all small technical matters which are not substantial question of law, the appeal cannot be filed before the High Court. Now the limitation period is 180 days from the date of receipt of order of GST 80, and the full amount of demand has to be paid unless you have a stay order from the High Court. Now, against the order of High Court, the appeal can be filed before the Supreme Court. Now, the limitation period is 90 days from the date of the order of the High Court. And appeal against Supreme Court can be filed if the order has been issued by the principal bench of the GST 80. The appeal lies directly before the Supreme Court. So, again, your full amount has to be paid. Now, as we discussed, that pre-deposit amount has to be paid before filing of appeal, because if pre-deposit amount is not paid, the appeal does not get admitted. Now a question arises whether this amount, when refunded, if I win the case and that amount is refunded, I'll be eligible to claim interest at the rate of 6% per annum. So when the department takes interest from you for the late payment of tax, it is 18%. But when the department returns the pre-deposit amount to us, that interest rate that they pay us is 6% per annum. So there's a wide difference between what they demand and what they pay to us. So now with this background, we come to the next aspect. Right now what we saw was a taxpayer filing an appeal. But in GST, even the department has a right to file an appeal. if, say, for example, at a first appeal stage and favorable order has been issued in favor of a taxpayer, the department has a right to file an appeal before the GST. Now, the department has clarified the monetary limits up to which they can file an appeal. So, if the tax demand is up to 20 lakh rupees on below 20 lakh rupees, the department preferably does not file an appeal before the GST. If the demand exceeds 20 lakh rupees, then the department can file an appeal before the GST. To file an appeal before the High Court, the demand has to be more than rupees 1 crore rupees. To file an appeal before the Supreme Court, the demand has to be more than 2 crore rupees. Now I have prepared a table to analyze the demand and how the monetary limit would apply, which you can refer it afterwards. Now, it is not mandatory that the department is to adhere to these monetary limits. Now, suppose if the demand is only 10 lakh rupees, but there is a provision in the appeal that the constitutional provision has been challenged, or maybe some provision in the act has been put as an unconstitutional argument, or the GST has held that this provision is ultra virus. In that case, the monetary limit won't apply and the department can proceed to file the appeal in that matters. Then for valuation, classification, refunds or place of supply, the monetary limits does not apply. Then there are some recurring interpretation issues which are involved with the department. In that case also, the monetary limit won't be applicable. Then if in the order any adverse comment has been passed against the government officer or against the government, in that case, this monetary limit won't be applied. And where the board considers it necessary in the interest of justice or revenue. So this is an open-ended clause wherein the department feels that yes, this appeal has to be filed against this order. In that case, the department will proceed to file an appeal if there is a favorable order in favor of the taxpayer. So even if the order is received in favor, we should not be happy. The department also has a right to file the appeal. So once that time expires for department appeal filing, only then it can be said that yes, I have received a favorable order. Now there are no further proceedings in this case. Now, with this background, we will now go more into the GST formation. Now, before going into the GST, I would like to just take into the historical aspect of the tribunal system in India. Now, what is a tribunal? And how it is different from the courts. The tribunal is a quasi-judicial body which has been created by specific statutes. For example, GST has been created under CGST Act. Income Tax Appellate Tribunal has been created under the Income Tax Act. NCLT or maybe NCLT has been created under the Companies Act. So these all tribunals are quasi-judicial authorities which offer a specialized, speedier and a less formal adjudication than ordinary civil courts. Now the major differences are the tribunal is created under a specific act, whereas court have constitutional or general statutes like civil procedure code or a criminal procedure code. Based on that, the proceedings are conducted. the composition of tribunal is formed of judicial members and technical members, whereas in court, the judges are only judicial officers. The procedure is guided by natural justice and is more flexible, whereas court procedures are guided by the newly enacted BNSS and BSA. The jurisdiction of tribunal is limited to the specific subject matter of that act, whereas courts have general jurisdiction. The objective of forming the tribunal is for a speedy, expert, and a specialized adjudication of that matter. Suppose and GST 80 tribunal adjudicating the issue will always have a specialized knowledge and a specialized foresight to decide the issue. Whereas in case of a court, the adjudication involves relating to all the disputes, so they might lack the specialized knowledge and the skills for deciding that issue. So this is where the tribunal becomes an advantage for resolution of disputes. Now, I will just take you to the short summary of how the tribunals took root in India. The Swaran Singh Committee was constituted in 1976, which recommended the framework of specialized tribunals so that the burden on the courts get reduced. So after the report of the committee, the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act was passed in 1976. After that, Article 323A and 323B of the Constitution were introduced, which gave the rights for the formation of specialized tribunals. Now, the tribunals which are there in India are, as we discussed, ITAT, Industrial Tribunal is there for labor disputes. SESTAT is there for customs, excise, and service tax disputes. CAT is there for central government officers disputes. NCLT and NCLAT, which we all are aware. GST 80 for disputes which has been formed in 24. Then the Appellate Tribunal for electricity is there. Debt Recovery Tribunal is there. Securities Appellate Tribunal is there. National Green Tribunal is there, dealing with pollution issues. So after the act was Constitutional Amendment Act was passed, post that many tribunals got established with an intention of resolution of disputes involving specialized knowledge and skills. Now we come to the constitutional framework of GST 80 and GST. See, I would just like to share my own practical experience. Any act which is formed has its roots in the Constitution. What we do is we read the act, but we never go into the constitutional aspects of that act. And if you will start going into the constitutional aspects of the act, I would tell you that you'll always have a different feeling of reading into that act. Now, same way for GST and GST 80, Article 246A of the Constitution gives the power to the Parliament and the state to legislate on GST, that is to form the GST Act. Then Article 269A gives the power for levy of tax and apportionment of IGST on interstate supply. Because if IGST is charged, it is consolidated rate of tax. So if a consolidated rate of tax is charged, how that tax amount will be divided between the center and the states, that is defined. Then the formation of GST Council is defined under Article 279A. Then what are the restrictions on taxation of interstate or export supplies has been mentioned in Article 286 of the Constitution. Now, below are the general articles which we should refer at the time of drafting the show cause notice reply or an appeal. Suppose if any tax has been levied on you, but there is no authority in the law to levy the tax on you. In that case, Article 265 has to be invoked. Then Article 14 has to be invoked if there is no equality before the law. Suppose you have a favorable order in same circumstances to one taxpayer. In that case, even you are entitled to have the same order in your favor if the facts and circumstances are same. If the order is against you, you can invoke Article 14 because you have not been treated equally before the law. Then Article 19(1)(g) can be invoked if your freedom to practice the profession or to carry on the business gets impacted. For example, if a GST registration gets cancelled, that activity impacts your freedom to carry on your business or profession. Then Article 300A, if is invoked, if the input tax credit, say for example, has been wrongly denied to you. Now, input tax credit is an asset that lies with you. So, the government cannot deprive you of the property except under the authority of the law. So, if there is no authority under the law, the article, but the input tax credit has been denied, Article 300A can be invoked. Now, the constitutional basis for the formation of the GST-AT. The provisions relating to GST-AT, as we discussed, were in Article 323A and 323B. But for GST also, the Article GST-AT, Article 246A has been mentioned in the Constitution, which gives the power or the constitutional source for levy. Now, we move to the another aspect. What is the need of GST-AT and the journey to operationalization? Because the act came in 2017, but GST-AT was formed in 2024. So why this delay? And what was the reasons for taking so much of time for the formation of GST-AT? Now, as we discussed, the litigation stages in GST, since GST Appellate Tribunal was not formed, any order which was issued by the first appellate authority, appeals were being filed in the High Court and from High Court to Supreme Court. So now around 4 lakh plus orders have been issued by the first appellate authority in last nearly 8 years. So GST-AT is the forum wherein the negative orders which have been issued by the tax department, by the first appellate authority, the appeals will be filed either by the department or by the taxpayer before the GST-AT tribunal. Now, filing the appeal before the High Court would be difficult because the High Court will insist that you have to first go to an alternate statutory remedy that is already available. So GST-AT is a statutory alternate remedy that is available to the taxpayer. So the taxpayer has to first file an appeal before the GST-AT, and if it is not satisfied with the order of GST-AT, only then it can file an appeal before the High Court. So directly going before the High Court won't be an option now with formation of GST-AT. And I would like to complement this part for GST-AT. that just like our NCLT, the GSTAT proceedings will also be for mandatory e-filing would be there. The hearings would be hybrid, physical and online, and the case management system is AI powered. That is what we have been informed. So with this background, I hope we are clear that what is the reasons for the formation of GSTAT. Now, GSTAT and SysTAT. Why I have put in a comparison? Because SysTAT is the tribunal which looks after the disputes relating to the excise era, service tax era, and the customs part. GSTAT has been newly formed. So the mode of filing in GSTAT is electronic. In SESTAT, it was manual. Mode of hearing, hybrid, physical plus virtual would be there. In SESTAT, the hearings are still physical. Only online option is given on Thursdays. The cause list is would be daily published in GSTAT. Mandatory pre-deposit is at GSTAT would be 10 plus 10, that is 20%. At SESTAT, it is 10%. The bench composition is judicial plus technical, center plus technical, state. And in SESTAT, it is only judicial plus technical member. Adjournment is maximum 3 per party is allowed. And at SESTAT, it can be adjourned as many times subject to valid reason. A disposal timeline has been given for GSTAT, preferably within 1 year, and the order has to be issued within 30 days of hearing. And in SESTAT, within 3 years, order has to be issued. Now, this is the journey timeline for formation of GSTAT. Now, this journey timeline will help us to understand the reasons why the GSTAT was formed in 2024, even if the act was formed in 2017. So in 2017, when the act was formed, sections 109 to 116 were introduced, which contains the provisions relating to GSTAT. In September 2019, the Madras High Court struck down the original GSTAT provisions as being unconstitutional. After that, the writ was filed in Supreme Court, which allowed to allow advocates at GSTAT members. Then in March 23, the amendments were done to cure the constitutional defects. Then in December 23, the CGST Amendment Act was passed, wherein advocates were allowed as members. Then in August 2023, Finance Act 2023 provisions on GSTAT were brought into force. May 24, first GSTAT president, that is Sanjay Kumar Mishra, takes oath. June 24, the circular relating to appeals of monetary limits for appeals by department was issued. Then in August 24, principal benches New Delhi was notified. November 24, various state benches were notified across India. In April 25, GSTAT procedure rules were notified. In September 25, the official website of GSTAT was launched and e-courts portal unveiled. December 25, staggered filing restriction was lifted and universal filing was opened. And in Feb 26, the GSTAT commenced its first phase of adjudicatory operation. That is, it commenced the hearings. So this is where I have summarized the important dates or maybe period which led to the operationalization of the GSTAT. Now we move forward for the constitution of GSTAT. The constitution of GSTAT is divided into two. First is the principal bench, which is located at Delhi, and it contains of the constituents of principal bench are president. There will be one judicial member center, one technical member center, and one technical member state. And it will have exclusive jurisdiction to decide the disputes relating to place of supply. The state benches, we have 31 state benches at 45 locations across India. And the state benches will constitute of 2 judicial members and 1 technical member state and 1 technical member center. Now, how the hearing will get conducted at the GSTAT? If your matter does not exceed 50 lakh rupees and tax, ITC or fine, fee or penalty does not exceed 50 lakh rupees and there is no question of law that is involved, after the approval of the president on prescribed conditions, the single member bench will hear the appeal. Now, if your appeal amount is less than 50,000 rupees, the GSTAT has a right that it may refuse to admit the appeal. So, there a risk that is involved if the demand in the order is less than 50,000 rupees, the GSTAT might refuse to admit the appeal for hearing. And if the amount exceeds 50 lakh rupees, in that case, the division bench will conduct the hearing. Now, in division bench, there are 2 members, 1 judicial member and 1 technical member. So these 2 members who form the tribunal will conduct the hearing if the amount of demand exceeds 50 lakh rupees in the order. Now, it may be possible that in a division bench, there may be difference of opinion between the member. So, if there is a difference of opinion, in that case, what has to be done has been defined in the Act itself. The matters may be either referred to the state bench origin or to the principal bench for resolution of the difference of opinion between the members. Now, this is the list where the state benches would be located, which I will just go through fast because this presentation would already be made available, and based on the state, you can refer this location of the tribunal benches. Now, I'll just take you through a walkthrough through the GSTAT legal provisions, that is sections 109 to 121. Now, what are the powers of the tribunal? The tribunal will have a power to summon an attendance of a person. Suppose if the tribunal feels that this person has to be made present for deciding the matter, it can issue a summons and that person attendance would be required before deciding the matter. It can also discover and produce and documents. So if any document is required, say for example from a bank statement is required, it has a powers to call for that bank statement from the bank. If they want a copy of an construction permission, they have a right to call that construction permission from the Nagarpalika or maybe Mahanagarpalika or any other government authority. Then they will have a right or maybe the power to receive the evidence on affidavit. Any evidence which is relating to the case may be submitted based on affidavit. Requisition records. Any public record or document which they require, they may issue a requisition for presentation of that records. Then they may issue commissions for examination of witness. And if a person who has filed an appeal, but they are not being represented for hearing in the appeal, then in that case, they have a ex parte right for deciding the appeal. So these are the powers of the tribunal. Now, how orders are being issued by the tribunal. The tribunal has the power to either confirm the order which was already issued by the first appellate authority. It has the power to modify the order, or it has the power to set aside the order. So these three options are given in the Act for issue of order. Next option is the tribunal can remand back the issue to the appellate authority or the original adjudicating authority. The original adjudicating authority is the authority which has issued the show cause notice. So it can remand back the matter to decide again as to the issue. Then it can pass any other order as it thinks fit. So wide powers have been given for the issue of order, and the orders of tribunal are like decree of a court. So this is a very important protection which has been given for the orders of the tribunal. Now, if an order has been passed, but there are errors on the face of the record, suppose the tax amount has been wrongly mentioned, or suppose the facts have been wrongly mentioned, because at the time of issue of orders, there may be some human errors in the order. So in that case, a rectification application can be filed for revision of, for rectifying the defect in that order, and a fresh order will be issued after rectification of that defect. Now, if a department files an appeal, in that case, a cross objection is filed by the taxpayer against the appeal. Now that has to be filed in form EPL 06 within 45 days of receipt of notice. That is the copy of appeal which has been filed by the department. Now the tribunal also has a power to award cost. Suppose you have a prayer in your appeal to award a cost if you have faced any loss, then in that case the tribunal also has a power to order the cost. It is reverse also, that the cost might be imposed on the taxpayer also if the appeal process is being misused or has been used with an intention to abuse the process of law. Now, GST Appellate Tribunal procedure rules have been issued. Just like our NCLT rules, GSTAT proceeding rules have been issued, and there are 124 rules, 15 chapters, and the powers relating to the issue of rules have been issued under section 111 of the CGST Act. Now, this is the list of the rules which have been mentioned in the GST 80 rules. Now, I'll just take you a glance of the key things which are important. The filing would be done in e-filing mode only at the website e-filing.gst80.gov.in. The uploads would be in PDF, and the maximum file size is 20 MB each. Then the sitting hours of the bench would be 10:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. and 2:30 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. Hearings would be hybrid, physical and virtual. Maximum 3 adjournments would be allowed. Additional evidence would be admissible only in specified circumstances with reasons recorded in writing. So you cannot place additional evidence at the tribunal stage which you have not presented in the past, or it can be placed before the tribunal only after the reasons why it were not placed in the past is mentioned. Then the orders are pronounced within to be pronounced within 30 days of final hearing. Now, this is the cause list, how it would be issued, the cause list would be divided into cases for pronouncement of orders, cases for clarification, cases for admission, cases for orders or directions, and part third cases, and cases for regular discussion. Then the forms which are important for filing of appeal before the tribunals are APL 05 is for appeal to GST 80 by the taxpayer. APL 06 is for cross objection, that is against the appeal which has been filed by the department. The taxpayer can submit its cross objection. APL 07 form is for filing of appeal by the department. APL 02A is the acknowledgement provisional or final, and GST 80 Form 01 is the interlocutory application. Form 02 is order sheet. Form 03 is inspection of records, and Form 04 is memorandum of appearance, that is, and the wakalatnama. Now, for filing of appeal, in addition to the pre-deposit of 20% that we discussed, you are also expected to file a filing fee. Now, what is the amount of filing fee is, it is minimum 5,000 rupees and maximum 25,000 rupees. And the filing fee is rupees 1,000 for every demand of rupees 1 lakh rupees. So if your demand is 3 lakh rupees, in that case, you will be required to pay minimum filing fee of 5,000 rupees. And if your demand is 6 lakh rupees, you are expected to pay the filing fee of rupees 6,000 rupees. And if the demand exceeds 25 lakh rupees, you are expected to pay only 25,000 as the maximum filing fee. Now, if there is no demand in the appeal, it may be a procedural issue. Even then, 5,000 rupees would be the appeal fees. If any interlocutory applications are filed, in that case, the appeal fees would be 5,000 rupees. If you are conducting any inspection of records at the GST 80, the fee would be 5,000 rupees. And if you want to obtain a certified true copy, the fee would be rupees 5 per page. Now, the process of filing would be online, just like our MCA filings. First, we will have to log in and select the role. Then there would be a filing slot. We have to enter the ARN of the order against which we are filing the appeal. Then there are tabs which have been specified, wherein the order details, case particulars, parties, representative details, and demand summary would be filled in. Then the documents would be uploaded, and after that, fee would be paid and the pre-deposit would be linked. And after that, there would be signing of the appeal by way of digital signature or by way of Aadhaar authentication. And after that filing, the submission would be there and the filing number would be received by SMS and email. The pre-deposit amount would be paid on the GSTN website only, and the filing fees would be paid through Bharat Kosh, the NCLT payment system that we do through payment of fee through Bharat Kosh. The same system has been adopted here also. Now, this is the pre-filing checklist which is there, which I think we have already discussed it. So I'll just skip through this. Now, the dress code for appearing before the GST 80 is, for men, it would be black coat, white shirt, and a black tie. And for women, it is black coat over white sari or dress. And in summer, exemption has been given from wearing a black coat while appearing. The summer season is between 15th April to 31st August. I think it is more or less like NCLT only. Now, the due date for filing of appeal before the GST 80 is 31st July. So it was previously up to 30th June, but the date has been recently extended by 1 month. So if any appeals are pending to be filed, let's ensure that the appeals are filed by 31st July. Now we come to the important aspect of representation rights of company secretaries. Now the representation rights of company secretaries has been mentioned in section 116 of the CGST Act. I mean, who can appear before the GST? The first category of persons who can appear are the relative or a regular employee. So if a company secretary who is in employment with the company, even he is authorized to appear before the GST being a regular employee of the company. Then an advocate is also authorized who is registered with the Bar Council, a practicing chartered accountant, a practicing cost accountant, and a practicing company secretary. And a person who is registered as a GST practitioner who is enrolled under Rule 83 of the CGST rules is authorized to appear before the GST. So this is a enabling legal provision in the CGST Act, which authorizes the company secretaries to appear before the tribunal, GST tribunal. And I would just like to compliment the view of CS Rajesh Tarpara sir, wherein he told that with our own understanding of the law, or maybe our own working methods relating to the Companies Act, GST is also similar pattern of working. So many freshers or maybe those who are already into corporate or maybe into practice may definitely explore this area of practice. And believe me, it's as good as and as wide as an area of practice. You have a lot of disputes coming into the GST. As he rightly told, every definition will have its own set of a dispute. Every state has a different view of looking into that same aspect. Central government has a different aspect to look at the issue. So all these things combined together puts a company secretary into a, I would tell, a very good position to analyze the law and having a good capacity to represent the clients before the uh, all the litigation authorities which we have already discussed. Now, what is the scope of company secretaries before GST? Now, where we can add value or what work we can do for GST. The first thing is drafting of appeals. Second is vetting of appeals. Those who are already experienced can do the work of checking of appeals, giving an additional ground into that appeal or maybe an additional view into that appeal will go on to make a lot of difference. How to have a litigation strategy in filing of appeals. Then compilation of evidence, because appeal is not merely putting a statement into the grounds of appeal. It has to be supported by a supporting document. The written submissions, the research relating to the case law given into the practical or given subject matter. Then representation, conducting hearing before the GST. The compliance review that is required to be done for the issue of appeal which is under dispute. You can also go into the advisory practice based on your experience as a GST professional. Rectification applications are required to be filed. Then stay and pre-deposit advisory and last but not the least is the litigation management, because merely filing an appeal is one task. Taking into the conclusion is a huge task. You receive hearing, adjournments, hearings again, additional evidences, additional arguments, and conclusion. So all this put together forms a part wherein we as a PCS or maybe a company secretary in a corporate can add a value. And I would just like to put in this opportunity metrics would be for all the stages, not only for GSTAT, because every stage you will always get this role getting involved. Rajesh sir, can I take 10 more minutes?
Yes, hello.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Thank
So
you.
no, there are questions answer. We also take
That
10, but
that I will
you can
cover.
continue by 10 minutes and then
But
we'll go for
in
question
next
answer.
10 minutes, I'll finish.
Yes, please continue.
Thank you
Interesting.
for. Now, what are the future growth opportunities that we have as a PCS? Now, 4 lakh plus accumulated orders. We'll have a lot of groundwork or maybe post appellate appeal filing work which would be coming out. So we as a company secretaries can be one of those preferred professionals who can appear before the GSTAT. And 4 lakh is, mind you, not a small number of appeals which are there to be filed before. And I'm talking about only the GSTAT. The other part is also very huge, believe me. Then you can have a pan India representation planning. Since the hearings are being conducted online, you can plan for a pan India representation either through your associate partners or maybe through another partnership strategies. The last part which I would like to put across is GSTAT and GST itself is AI based data crunching issues. So we also now need to acquaint ourselves with AI. Those who are still not into AI, I think ChatGPT is there, but the tools have grown far beyond ChatGPT. So I would advise, maybe I cannot advise, but I'll recommend my colleagues to take a review of those tools and use that tools into your regular practice. It will surely help you save a lot of your time and will help you to prepare a creative document for your client or maybe for filing of appeal. Now, this is the tribunal practice toolkit which I would like to share based on my experience. So, if you are planning into GST, what you need to do. Now, this is the everyday schedule that you need to put across. If any notification or circular is issued, you need to make an habit to go through and read to that through that notification and the circular. Many websites provide regular updates on your WhatsApp for the orders which are issued by the high courts, Supreme Courts, or maybe by the tribunal. So even reading that headline, I would tell you, will make a lot of difference going ahead. You are not expected to read the each line of the order every day. Even a headline, I would like to tell you, will make a lot of difference and will add a lot of value for your uh, everyday knowledge relating to the litigation. Then there are GST Council meetings which happen every 6 months. So reading into that minutes, reading into the press release, and post that the notifications is really very important. Now, this is a ongoing process which you can do, that is sharpen your craft. The case law database is very important. If you want to go into the litigation practice, uh, the matter which you are going to handle, you need to have the database of all the judgments that are issued. Now you go and do the research, but after the research, to preserve that research is also important. So that is where the case law database comes into picture. Then you need to improve your drafting skills every day. Drafting is an art, it is not a science. So each day you will have to put some efforts to improve your drafting skills, so that whenever your appeal documents gets drafted, you need to have not only your view, but you also need to have a gauge of what is going to come against you, that is from the department side, or the department's advocate, how he is going to argue. So drafting as a art needs to have a continuous improvement. Oral arguments is again an art, and with experience I'll tell you it will grow very positively. And whenever you do research, make a habit that research notes are saved in your library, because many times what happens is we do research for 1 hour, and after that 1 hour we may come to a conclusion in next 5 minutes relating to the aspect of the issue what we were searching for. So whenever you do that research for 1 hour, whatever notes, if you can preserve that, keep a glance on it and preserve those notes so that you can utilize that notes in future. Now the technology toolkit which you would like to monitor every day, the GST portal. Now, as just like MCA, the data is all saved in the GSTN portal, and you need to really have a everyday glance over this data. What all new developments are getting take place on the GSTN portal relating to the data. You need to have command over the returns that are filed, the data of the return that are filed, how you analyze it, the electronic credit ledgers, cash ledgers, how the department sees that data. So data analytics skills is really very important, or maybe the data crunching skill is really very important for your base for litigation practice. Now, AI powered e-filing and tracking. So many websites have come across which help us for AI powered e-filing and tracking of the disputes. Then AI research tools, as I discussed, it is not only about ChatGPT, but there are many other tools which are available wherein a lot of legal data is already updated into that special database. So now we need to do that R&D and go into that legal research database. Now, what are the common grounds which we can take before the GSTAT? The first is limitation. Suppose if an show cause notice was issued after the limitation period, or the order has been issued after the limitation period, then natural justice, no hearing has been given. The order has been issued ex parte. You have demanded cross examination, but that has not been given. So in all these cases, natural justice getting denied will raising that grounds in the order is very important. Then the jurisdiction was not there to issue a show cause notice or to issue an order. Then absence of suppression, that is section 74 is there, wherein for cases before 2024, the show cause notice was issued either under section 73 or 74. So if 74 is invoked, the fraud, willful misstatement, and suppression gets attracted, only then section 74 notice is issued. Then the revenue neutrality agreement. If there is no loss to the government, the demand cannot be there. Then the bona fide interpretation of the law which you have made, that you can present as an argument. Then there may be a procedural lapse. Your intention may not be to evade the tax, but it might be a procedural lapse due to which it may look like a evasion of tax. Then there may be double taxation, wherein the same supply may have been taxed twice. Reliance on circulars, whatever arguments that we put in, we should make a point that we should refer the circulars from the software, so that if the government has already clarified on that point, it will really help us out for our case. Then if there is an incorrect valuation which has been done, you can go through the act and the valuation rules to justify whether your valuation was incorrectly done. Place of supply errors or the wrong head of tax payment is done, you can rectify it by making the payment under the right head. The classification disputes, time of supply disputes, ITC eligibility disputes. Then promissory estoppel is what that the department might have agreed something in the past, but that same thing should continue. So that is what promissory estoppel principle comes into picture. Then there is a legitimate expectation which should be there. The department should not expect anything out from the taxpayer. So if there is a expectation, but there is no possibility of completing that expectation, then that legitimate expectation results into a doctrine of impossibility. That condition is not possible to be fulfilled. Then constitutional challenge, which we already discussed these articles, and the burden of proof. Now, if the revenue does not discharge its burden of proof, that can also be taken into the argument. Now, drafting before the tribunal is the first is memorandum of appeal, wherein the brief facts relating to the proceedings are mentioned, right from the show cause notice stage to the order stage, against which we are filing the appeal. Then statement of facts contains the very brief of the proceedings and the dispute which has been under order. Then the grounds of appeal are the grounds which we discussed against which you expect a relief from the tribunal. The synopsis is the short summary of the case. Additional evidence, if you want to present in the appeal, even that can be presented. And written submissions, that is post appeal, after hearing, if a court, a tribunal expects you to put in a written submission, even then that consolidated arguments with a compilation of the case laws can be presented. Now, what are the challenges in GST litigation, which we need to anticipate? Now, there are frequent amendments in GST. Notifications are issued, circulars gets issued, rates gets changed. So all these frequent amendments, we need to really have a track of this on a day-to-day basis. Then there are technical complexity. You need to have a skill of reading, or maybe you need to develop an interest of reading each provision each day if you have a case at hand. You cannot be expected to have a one reading and the same domain knowledge will help you crack the case. So that's not going to happen because GST is really very complex. So you need to have a reading interest getting developed within yourself. There are many conflicting judgments of the high courts. Madras High Court may say this ITC is available. Gujarat High Court may say this ITC is not available. So in that case, you need to have a clear understanding of both the judgments. You cannot have an understanding of only the Madras High Court judgment, which is in your favor, and not having an understanding of a Gujarat High Court judgment, which is against you. So at the time of drafting, you need to anticipate this challenge. Then there are procedural issues which we need to take care of, being online filing and all. There are always risks of systems going down, or maybe system related issues we need to take care of. Then there are data analytics investigations. The GST department has formed data analytics team at Delhi just to analyze the data that we file in the returns. And based on that data, they give us the points for scrutiny or notices. Then you should also have a gauge of if any matter that you are dealing with whether any same matter is pending before High Courts or maybe at Supreme Court. So all these challenges may anticipated at the time of preparing for litigation practice. Now, this is the roadmap which I would like to share with students who are freshers and may like to go for GST practice. This is the 24-month learning plan which I have designed based on my experience. For months 1 to 6, I would suggest the fresher to go through the basic return filing things so that he can just watch through the basics of the GSTN website. After that, he should start studying the show cause notice and the appeals for 8 to 12 months. Then he should start researching for the case laws from 14 to 18 months. Then here he should start preparing a library, a database, which it can be referred at the time of drafting. Then from 14th to 18th month, he can start his own drafting practice to draft a simple notice, then show cause notice, then first appeal, and then a tribunal appeal. After having confidence here, he should start appearing with his seniors for the hearings. And after this hearings, he can then plan at least after 2 months or 2 years of dedicated practice, then he may think of starting an independent representation under the guidance of a senior. So with this, I end my deliberations, but I would just like to share that it's a defining opportunity for the profession. Companies Act is definitely a bread and butter for all of us, but GST can also become a bread and butter, believe with me. And definitely the journey would be a bit hard to start with, but then the fruits will also be very good. And as Section 116 opens the door for a high value litigation and advisory practice, I would request each one of you, those who are in corporate also, to take interest in GST, and those who are in practice also to take interest in GST. And with just last my thought that the courtroom does not rewards the loudest voice, it rewards the best prepared mind. So you have to be best prepared, give your 100% to the case, and let the bench decide for you, because every tax litigator once argued his first case. Knowledge creates competence, preparation creates confidence, and confidence creates success. So I hope the GST80 leaders are sitting in this room with me today, and I should be proud going ahead. And if you need any help with from my side to mentor with or maybe to guide with, this is my email ID and my mobile number is there. And I've just put a QR code. If you want to connect with me on the LinkedIn, you can connect with me. So thank you, and thank you to my mother institute, ICSI, once again to provide me this opportunity of knowledge sharing. Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Kaushik ji. Very, very detailed and very enlightening and sharpening the skill of a company secretary. It is very, very fantastic session. I would like to say that you justified really the topic, and looking to the topic and session delivery, I think we should also plan series of the webinar like this in the nature of more detailing in depth study for the GST. And now coming to the questions and answers, I'm just going. Can we apply both refund on export of the goods, and inverted duty structure of the same bill?
Yes, you can apply.
Yes, I agree with you. And I would like to take liberty also, because I'm also dealing with the GST matters. So simultaneously, I will also answer the questions.
It would my pleasure for your guidance, sir.
Now, next question. we are paying GST on the total value. Yeah, this is the question relating to our professional invoices we are raising to the client. We are paying GST on the total value of the invoice, which include the statutory fees like MCA challenge and all the things. The professional says that it is in bunch of the service, he can charge the GST on total value of the invoice. Is it correct practice?
Sir, ROC fees is not required to be included in the invoice value for the purpose of GST. Only for the purpose of reimbursement it can be taken, but not for the purpose of GST. And it has been very clearly clarified in Section 15 by way of example only, and that too for our MC on ROC fees only.
Sir,
I'll
the
just
question is then the consultant, secretarial auditor or secretary is not raising the invoice in two form. They are simply raising one invoice, putting all the expenses along with the consultancy fees. And then last they are charging the GST. Is it correct practice? Again, that for more clarity.
uh, so charging GST on the ROC fees portion is not correct.
Correct. Agree. So what should we advise is that in most of the offices of the consultant, they are raising two invoice, or one invoice with one debit note, right? One invoice
Right.
for purely consultancy fees or whatever professional charges, and second invoice that is maybe in the name of the bill of supply or debit note, to the extent the reimbursement relating to that,
Reimbursement of
right?
perfectly.
So that should be the practice. There should be two invoice. Okay. Next question, if party has not filed a return, still we can get the credit on the invoice?
That's the litigation area for GST.
Yes, that's what is our practice is lies, right?
That
And
because supplier not paying the tax has not filed the returns. That means the tax amount is also not paid. So once the tax amount is not paid, the provisions of Section 16 does not get satisfied for the purpose of availment of ITC. So in
correct.
that case, the department will plead for a reversal of ITC if we have availed.
Yes, and in this question, the return, which return they are talking is not mentioned. If it is GSTR 3.1 or a GSTR 1, if it is not filed, definitely they cannot get the credit because it is not matching with the 1 and 2B, right?
Two, right, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Now, next question. What is the consequences if exporter of the service under LUT make manual entry in the GSTR1 for export in place of reporting through e-invoice portal? There is no output GST on the export. Can I read again?
No, I got your point. I think he intends to say that e-invoice has not been generated.
Correct. Maybe. Yeah, I am also
And,
same view.
physical
Yes.
invoice from the books of accounts which he has generated that he has disclosed in GSTR1. So I don't feel it should be an issue for the compliance part. But yes, e-invoice has to be generated because 30
E-invoice
days
has to be generated subject to that turnover limit or whatever applicability
subject
of
to
e-invoice.
turnover
Yes.
limit and the 30 days limit which has been given.
Then they
So
can put the data in the manual format. No issue. By whatever means they are filing, right?
right.
Okay. Correct. Then next question, is GST payable on incentive received from EPFO for employment generation under government scheme?
No, no. In my view, no, not payable because it's not a supply.
Correct. How to account the entry in GST for transit loss, evaporation loss happened during the transit as well as loss in storage. The loss in storage and breakage in terms of ITC availment.
Storage and breakage is, I think, let's take it into the three parts. First is the process loss, then the breakage part.
So transit loss, evaporation, and shortage and breakage. Accordingly, you can answer, please.
So for transit loss, I don't feel ITC is required to be reversed. because that is a process loss into the a part of the process only, and because the goods are not lost, stolen, or destroyed, or written off. So I think these conditions for reversal of ITC don't get satisfied for first part. What you told is process loss or evaporation loss.
Okay.
Mm. Then second part.
Hello. Do I need to repeat it?
No, first part, I think, in my view, no, ITC reversal is not required for evaporation.
Okay, evaporation and process loss. ठीक है. And
evaporation.
ट्रांसपोर्टेशन में जो लॉस होता है उनकी बात कर रहे हैं, एंड स्टोरेज में लॉस होता
वो भी सेम ही हो गया समझो.
Okay, ठीक है. Then it is covered, I think, right?
Covered. हाँ.
Okay. So now moving to next question. Can a healthcare company take input credit on goods purchase?
Primarily, healthcare services are exempted from tax, so ITC won't be available. Primarily, only that ICU room rent above 5,000, some that limit has been made liable to tax. So apart from that, nothing is taxable under healthcare.
Okay.
So
Now,
ITC won't be available.
Now, next question is for reporting the export of service under LUT in a GSTR1. Should we select 0 rate or 18% rate to be chosen from the drop-down menu while filing GSTR1?
18%. Because
Okay.
the type of supply is zero rated, but the 0% should not be there. I think.
Yes. I do also agree with your view. Yes. Because the respective rate, not only 18, but whatever the commodity rate is there, it should be selected under LUT while exporting.
Right.
Correct. The can input tax credit on import of the purchase, which would not be utilized against the sale, be claimed as a refund?
I think we need more facts to answer, because
he has given an example. If you permit, I can read that.
Because without example,
again, I am again reading the question. Can input tax credit on import purchased, which could not be utilized, be refunded? For example, IGST paid on import of goods during 2025 25 and 26 is 20 lakhs. So he has said IGST paid on import is 20 lakhs.
Okay.
And available credit 20 lakhs.
Hmm.
ITC utilized on the sale of all material imported is only 18 lakhs.
Hmm.
So can balance unutilized of the ITC, that let's say that is 2 lakhs, right? Be refunded? We can claim, as there is no now inventory left out because of selling at a lower price to manage the business things and unavoidable situations.
So selling at lower price is not eligible for it.
Yes, because it is not fitting case in any of the options given for the refund.
Yes, section 54, the situation does not fit in. Right.
Only one option left them is to discontinuation of the business, and at that moment, whatever credit is lying, you can go for the refund.
You can go for
but for that, you have to declare the discontinuation of the business in total.
Right.
Okay. Now, next question. Can the appellant adduce the evidence which he could not at the time of scrutiny proceedings or at the time of the first appeal?
Yeah, after the specifying the reasons for not presenting it. I discussed that, I think, during the deliberation.
Yes.
It can be presented.
Okay. Next question is there any limitation period for the reopening of the assessment?
Sir, frankly speaking, there is no provision for reopening of assessment in GST. The reassessment, what you can call is, suppose if an assessment has already been done, and post completion of that assessment, if the department feels there is one issue which has cropped up today after the completion of assessment proceedings. So it can issue a show cause notice. So that is not reassessment, I'll call. The show cause
So
notice.
revision can be there. Revision can be there, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure for revision because that proceeding, which the assessment which was done, is already closed. Because once ASMT 12 is issued, that proceeding stands closed. But afterwards, say some new facts come to the knowledge of the department. So in that case, the notice will be issued to the taxpayer. And now with the Section 74A coming into picture, the limitation period is 42 months from the due date of annual return. So during that period, n number of proceedings can be initiated by the department, irrespective of the nature of issue. So
Okay.
maybe once the assessment is done, audit will not be initiated. Or once audit is done, assessment will not be initiated. But investigation related issues, which may crop up even after assessment, I think the department can issue a notice.
Okay. Now, almost last questions. Under Section 116 of CGST Act, PCS are explicitly recognized as an authorized representative. With the new operational of GST, how do you see the practical role and opportunity of the company secretary involved in the tribunal representative, and what the specific expectation does the department have from the CS? I think this is common in nature, but even though you can in last
I've already deliberated
ah,
into my discussion, but to repeat it again, uh, as a company secretary, we have a natural skill of very effectively reading into the law. So that's our strength. When you have a command of reading over the law, I'll tell you the practical aspects of going into the argument will also be stronger. Because if you have command over the law, your arguments over a period will sharply improve. So as far as litigation part is concerned for company secretaries, uh, coming into it and practicing into GST, I see a lot of scope. And I'll just give you a parallel example of for GST litigation also and the compliance practice also. Even many advocates are practicing, especially into GST. So I think we as a company secretaries also, I see a lot of scope going ahead for both the segments, compliance also and litigation part also. But I'll give more weightage to the litigation part, giving our natural skill sets relating to the command over the legal part. So yes, legal has a lot of scope for us as a company secretary.
okay. So now there is no more question left. So we happily, with the sound knowledge and insightful knowledge of tribunals, we are concluding this session. And lastly, that being a company secretary, in each and every act, we should we have to find two aspects for our practice. One is compliance part, second is litigation parts. Whether you go for GST, whether you go for income tax, company law, FEMA, whatever act it is there, all the acts have two type of the scope for the professional. One, compliance part, that is filing of the returns, forms, registration, changes in the things and constitution. And second part is the litigation parts. And all two parts, either go for compliance part or you can venture directly into the litigation parts. But moving toward the litigation parts, you must be aware about the compliance parts.
Compliance.
And put together, all are now, because of e-initiatives and technology advancement, most of the things are governed by the portal, right? So we have to be techno savvy along with the interpretation skills. And yes, GST already having started to set up the batches state-wise, so ample of opportunity would be available. Each state will have a GSTAT, right? So
Right.
almost 28 states are there in the country, along with 8 union territory. So we can imagine that how much work would be there. And
Right.
each and every definition of the GST Act, each and every concept of the GST is still evolving, still yet to be established based on the various pronouncement and judicial announcement. It will take time to settle the definitions and all the things. And during this period, there is ample opportunity to prove our skill as a smart and complete company secretary, rather I would say, and skillful company secretary. And with this concluding remark, I must thank to the Kaushik ji for giving this detailed analysis and detailed process of the GSTAT. And I'm sure that the attendees have earned the very much insightful knowledge in the practice area. They can implement the knowledge whatever you gain. And if you permit, we can share your presentation to the
Yes, sir.
delegates.
I'll share.
So I'll request the headquarters to share the same to the registered delegates. And with this, I am again thankful to you and entire team behind this webinar, technical staff, employees of the ICSI, and last but not the least, the delegates of the person who is attending the webinar and members at large. Thank you for support and thank you for joining this kind of the initiative of the ICSI. Thank you, friends. Thank you, Kaushik ji. We will again come with new and very vibrant topic for the
Sure,
capacity
sir.
building of the member. Thank
Thank you.
you.
Sure, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, member.